Is it a bird? Is it a plane?
No, it's Mannimal.
We're in the garden here to have a look around, see if we can identify a few different species, some of the more common ones. But just to kick off, I've already got a few candidates lined up for inspection. They're in a couple of inspection jars here. And the first one is the commoner garden honeybee, which is a relatively small bee compared to most of the bumblebees and a lot of the cuckoo and vestigial bees, which we also get on the island. And the honeybee itself is relatively brown, relatively, I wouldn't say boring, but he's not showing, or it is not showing a great deal of colour on it. It's got a brownish colour, a bit of hairiness to the thorax, and it's about a centimetre, 1.2 centimetres long, 1.3. It's quite a small bee.
It is quite small, sort of thing people might not even recognise it as a bee, wouldn't they? They might just think it's a...
That's very much the case. Most people don't recognise them as being a bee. They mistake them as things like hoverflies, various other flies, but they don't actually realise that that's a true bumblebee, honeybee. And that's what we've got as we walk around the garden. There are plenty over on one side of the garden here, because there are some hives not far away from here. So we've got good numbers of those. But they are. I've got one of these here because they're what most people think of as bees, and most people think of as being a social bee living in a large hive, lots of them, and the ones such as this one here that you see flying around for 99% of the time are the workers. The bumblebees are not large social insects in the same way. They don't have big hives, they don't have large groups, and very often when you see them around, a lot of the species you will be seeing either the male or the female. You don't tend to find them in big groups. They often live in small holes in the ground, in walls, in rotting wood, and there may be only 2, 3, 4 living in each little colony. So they are much more solitary by nature. They also, some of them don't have a worker stage, they don't have a worker element. So, as I say, you'd either see the male or the female. Some of them do have workers though. So alongside this honeybee that I've got here, I've got a specimen of one of the, it is a worker of the buff-tail bumblebee.
Ah, this is the buff-tail. Now I remember we've looked at him a couple of years ago, I think, up on Douglas Head one time.
And they are, they are considerably larger. We're looking at a bee that's probably 3 times the size overall to the honeybee. Very bold markings.
I mean, this is what a bee to most people looks like, isn't
Exactly.
it? This is what most people say, this is a bee.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But they've got very bold markings. They're very chunky around the thorax and the abdomen. This one's displaying a very nice, clear orange stripe over the front of the thorax, and another orange, slightly lighter orange stripe over the rear of the thorax. And then it's got what appears to be a white tail, but actually this is a buff tail. And this is one of the 6 most common species that you're likely to find in the garden.
And is this the giveaway if people are trying to identify this actual buff tail at the back of the abdomen?
You'd like to think it was as straightforward as just having a buff tail. Unfortunately,
I knew it wouldn't be.
No. All these things tend to be slightly more complicated. It's very easy to get the white tails and the buff tails muddled up. What you have to do is, the easiest way to tell them apart is to look to see how many segments there are between the hindmost orange band and what appears to be the white or buff tail. If there's 2 or 3 segments, what appears to be 2 or 3 segments between the orange band and the white area, then probability is it's a buff tail, and that's what we've got here. If it looks like you've only got one band, one segment between the hindmost band and the white section, then it's probably a white tail.
Yeah, so that's a handy tip. There's 1 band for white and 2 or more for buff, roughly,
as
a rule of thumb.
As a rule of thumb. The queens are slightly different, and the males also, they tend to have more orange on them. But most of the ones that you'll see in the garden, especially this time of year, will be the workers. So it's a fairly reliable indicator. And just behind us 2 moments ago, we did have a couple more workers sitting on some of these alliums behind us. I think they've moved on now. Yeah, that's a carder bee. This is a brown one. we had the buff tail over here, there, which is, about, as I say, 3-4 times larger than the honeybee. This is a carder bee, and it's probably only about 1.5 times the size of the honeybee. Not very easy to get a clear view. I think that's about as good as we're going to get. But it's covered with a light brown downy fur over the back of the thorax.
Yes, you can see that now as she just turns round. There it is. Yeah.
And then onto the abdomen, you've got quite clear segments. Each segment's got a little brown edge to it, and down the side of the abdomen there's a line of brown furry tussocks sticking out. These can be a little bit tricky to tell apart, but this has got an almost entire mat of fur hair over the back of the thorax. So that's a common carder.
There he goes.
Let that one go. He's a bit agitated. Don't think he was terribly happy about being imprisoned, that one. I'll put it on a flower because it'll be...
There he goes. He's away. So let's take a look at the sheep for a second. Carried by our handy assistant. And there's the common carder bee.
Yep.
There we are down the bottom there. Yes, you can pick it up from there, I think. Let's see what else we can see here.
See, when you're doing this, and you sort of get a nice spot like here, we've got plenty of flowers, lots of foxglove coming up, which are always a good one. If you want to look for bumblebees and catch bumblebees, foxgloves are always nice because the bees go into the flower, so you can just
pop it over the end,
receptacle over and easily take them out.
And can people get these little specimen jars from the shop, or just use a little plastic thing at home? I suppose.
Or you can just use a clear yogurt
just
pot.
Something easy
clear
to
yogurt pot with a piece of plastic for a lid, just so you can hold them in your hand for a few minutes, just to get a good clear look.
And then let them out without harming them.
Yep.
Perfect.
It's another common
carder bee down there.
I'm hoping we'll find a red tail and possibly a moss carder as well. So we'll have a look a bit further up.
Oh yes. Now what have we got here?
We'll consult the sheet with this one.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Okay, out with the sheet here.
Right.
Hold out sheet 2.
Yeah. And this one we've got in front of us. If you look at it, it's got. When he decides to settle down a bit, we'll give him a flower. He or she. See if that pacifies for a few moments. There we go. No. It's just got a very, if you look at the tail, it's got a very small segment of colour on the back of the
Yes,
abdomen.
right at the very end of the abdomen there.
A slightly orangey colour, certainly not white. You got it there?
Red shaped no.
Yeah. I think what we're looking at here
Bumblebee?
is a male red tail. This picture here on the illustrations, it shows the white band over the front of the thorax, and it then shows several segments of the abdomen as being coloured. You can see this has got a single band over the front of the thorax, but then it's only what appears to be only one abdominal coloured band. But I think we're almost certainly looking at one of these red tail males, quite a bit smaller than the big females of the other two species we've seen, probably about 1.5 times the size of a standard honeybee, and very agitated, very much faster flying.
A lot of life.
I'm going to let that one go. I'm not 100% sure of the identification on that one, I've got to be honest, because it should have 2 bands on the bum, and it hasn't.
It hasn't, no, definitely not.
But it would appear to be
I'll let them go anyway.
one of the red tails and a male, and the way it goes.
Oh, it's up my nose. Nothing else.
If you look at this, this is a larger bee again.
That's a big bee, this it is.
And we've got a double band to the yellow band to the thorax. If you look at it when it settles down again, sometimes you have to wait for them to settle down a bit. If I'm trying to get it settled down so you can see the tail, there you go. When it settles down, the tail is pointed, quite pointed, quite distinctly pointed compared to the other. And this is our, again, it's a bit deceptive on the drawing because the drawing shows the thorax with a yellow segment, but you can see now it's settled. It's got the back of the thorax got a yellow band, and then the top of the abdomen has a yellow band. So the two bands merge together when it stays together, stays still, but when it's flying and it's moving, those two bands move apart. The tail has got 2 or 3 white segments, but then it's got a very distinctive black tip to the tail. We can just turn it around. There we go.
Settle down quite a bit
See
now.
it there, right?
Yeah, you
See a
can
very
that back, can't you?
distinctive black pointy tip to the
on
tail.
the end there. Yeah.
And that's our friendly. Also, we'll look at the face. We've turned it around. You can see the face now. It's got quite a long thin
pointed
face.
Yeah.
And that's our garden bumblebee. It is a white tail, but look for that little black tip and the double banding on the back. Another of the common ones. 6 most common ones we're likely to get.
And good size as well. Yeah, certainly won't miss him. Pop him back on his foxglove. Oh, there he goes. And he's